Okay, for this project, what we're going to do is create a crankset off of a bicycle. Okay, so I've got some reference, and I'm going to bring it into Photoshop. And what I'm going to do is rotate it so it's straight up. We don't want to really build this at an angle like this. So I'm going to just increase my canvas size here. So we have some extra space around this. Just going to give me a center line here, Control T to select it, and then rotating it. Now there's some distortion in this image. You can see that one side's not exactly the same as the other. And for modeling purposes, it's going to be a little bit easier if I mirror this from one side to the other. So I'm going to crop the image down. We just want a little bit of space around it. Then I'm going to select one side and I'm going to copy that. Doesn't matter which side you copy. In this one, it's pretty much the same. And then I'm going to mirror that. Now, it's going to cause me a little bit of a problem because it won't be exact, but it's just got to be close. It'll make my life easier when I create this because I'll just use a symmetry in dealing with this at several points during the creation. So something like that's a little bit better. Then what I want to do is kind of use a low chroma color. Doesn't matter what color, just make sure it's low chroma. And I'm going to put this on a blending mode of multiply, and then it's going to turn it down a little bit. And what this is going to do is tone the image. And the reason I'm doing this is I'm going to be using splines. I'm going to do a spline modeling technique. So I don't want white because you draw with white splines, so you don't want a really white background. So I am saving this, going to put it in my Scene Assets Images folder, and you can pick whatever file format. I'm going to use a PNG. That's what I prefer. And once I get this saved, then this will be set up ready to go into Max. Okay. All right, so now we want to make us a tracing plane. I'm going to build in the front view. I have a tendency to want to build in the front view. So I just build a plane here. Doesn't matter the size of the plane. I see a lot of people measuring the plane and doing all this stuff to the plane. Doesn't matter what the size of the plane is. I want to get it a size that is close to what that piece will be, so I'm building physically. So I'm going to change this to around a foot or so, which is approximately about the size of that, what Crankset is. It doesn't have to be perfectly that size, but just in the realm because we'll be using physical lighting and physical shaders. So I zero this plane out. I don't need to measure the size of the plane. I'm setting everything up for centimeters. That way, if I take it into another program like ZBrush or something, the size will be correct. And I don't need all these link segments. As a matter of fact, not only do I not need them, I don't want them. Okay, I'm going to convert it to an editable poly. And then I'm going to put a UVW map coordinate on it. Okay, we're just going to get a regular standard shader put on it. And then I'm going to load my image in there. My reference image. Okay, and I'm going to go up here and click to turn it on so I can see it in the viewport. And then we'll see it in here. I'm going to go ahead to and name my shader so we don't get confused. And you'll see it's distorted, which is fine. Okay, I'm going to go down here and click Bitmap Fit and click on it. Then it's going to scale the bitmap so it's the right size. Then I just need to come in underneath that and kind of adjust my plane so that I get the whole image on there. And that looks pretty good. Okay. I'm going to turn my tiling off. I don't need it to tile. Max defaults to tile everything by default. Okay, I just want to slide it back from my construction plane that I'm going to be creating on, and then I'm going to go into its properties, and I want to turn off show frozen in gray. If I freeze it, which I'm going to do right here, so that it can't be moved, if I don't do that, when I freeze it, the image, you won't be able to see it. So now this is locked in 3D space, and I'm pretty much set up, ready to start modeling. Okay, what I'm doing here is I'm going in and increasing the quality of the display settings. Okay, I'm changing all these to 4096. And I'm turning my anti-aliasing up. Now, if you don't have a very good graphics card, you may not want to do this, but mine's good enough. And it'll give me a little bit better image in here of what I'm looking at. Okay, so I'm drawing with a line here. Now I'm going to be building with subdivision surfaces, so I'm building this very crude with this line. Okay, and initially I'm going to build about half of this, and then I'm going to mirror this. So I'm just going to rotate it straight up. And then I'm going to mirror it. You have to use a mirror because a symmetry won't work on a spline. So I'm doing a mirror here, making a copy, and then I'll just slide that over. Something about like that. And I don't need that piece. And let's see. We will just attach the two together so they're one. And I'm going to turn my snaps on to vertex. Make sure I don't have a constraint on. Then I'm going to snap those. Okay. Then I need to select all these and weld them, keeping my weld threshold pretty small, 0.01 or something like that. I don't need that point in the center. I want it in the center, so I'm going to delete that, and then I'm going to grab this piece and go down here and hit divide, which will put that point directly in the center. And I'm going to make all these corners and all of these lines as lines, not curves, because I'm going to build with subdivision surfaces. Okay. So now I can rotate it back in place. Actually, I want to center its pivot, makes it easier. So kind of move it back in place, and then I can modify it. Okay, so now I can turn my snaps off, and then I can move this back down. And move these in a little bit. Give me that basic shape. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I want as close as possible. I think I'm going to chamfer these just around this a little bit more, give me a little more detail along the outside edge. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is select this piece, and I'm going to do an outline and create a perfect copy to make that little edge that's in there. Okay, so now I'm just swinging it to a 3D view, and then I'm going to push this one back a little bit to give it that depth. Okay, that looks pretty good. Then I'm going to cross section these to give me my connecting lines. Switch back to my front view. Adjust this just a little. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right, so now I'm going to put a surface modifier on it. So this is just a 2D spline. Now, a lot of times you may kind of wig out a little bit when you're first doing it, and it's because the weld threshold is too high. You need to turn your weld threshold down. We just need to put us a good old standard shader on here. Give it a name. Apply that. Now, sometimes the normals will be flipped the other way, so it may look black. So there's a flip normal button on there that you can flip the normals if it's facing the other way. We're building a spline, so sometimes it can't figure out which way we want it. So we want a real low threshold, a lot of times like 0.001, and then we want 0 on our steps. That's very important that you have 0 on your steps. Okay, now what I'm doing is I'm unfreezing this and I'm moving it because I'm going to do an array with this piece, and so I need the center to be at our origin. Okay, here I'm just kind of creating a spline to kind of see my center so that I can get a better idea of where the center of this image is. So I'm just kind of using it as a measuring tool. Okay, that looks pretty good. I don't need that anymore. And then I'm going to go in and freeze my background again. Okay, so now what I'm going to be able to do is with this piece, do an array with it. So I'm changing my settings to world here so that my rotation will rotate around the world. And my axis is wrong. Okay, there we go. We're on the y-axis now. The count defaults to 10. I need 5. And now I know these are perfectly radiating out from that center. So I'll click OK. Okay, now let's go in here and let's create this little piece that's in between those. So I'm going to follow basically the same steps. Draw about half of it. Okay, I'm going to rotate it up and do the exact same thing that I did with the other one. Okay, do a mirror with a copy. Slide it over. Okay, so I need to attach them. Then I select these vertices, and I can make these, let's see, we'll do a weld. We'll just do a huge weld threshold. Doesn't matter, it's big enough that we can grab that. And we'll do the same thing up here. Okay, so now I want all of these to be corners and all of these to be lines and not curves. Okay, we want to center our pivot again. And now we can rotate and put it back in place. And I need to turn off my world setting. And I can place this, kind of rotate it, get it in place. Okay, just lining it up. Just make some final adjustments here. Okay, so I'm doing my outline. And then move it back. Now I'm going to switch to the top so I can make sure I'm going to give it the same depth that I gave those other pieces. Okay. Okay, so do my cross section. Put my surface on it. Now you'll see it kind of welded it because my threshold's too big. It needs to be 0.01 or 0.001, which is just coincident vertices. Okay, so I'll put a material on it and convert it to a poly. Okay, so now I can do the same thing, do an array. So I switch it back to world and then my world pivot point. Do my array. Okay, I kind of, once I was looking at that, I realized that that's not quite in the center, and it needs to be kind of centered between those. They're a little off, so I'm just going to adjust that to fix that before I do the array. Okay. Oh, it defaulted to view up there, so I'm going to switch that to, needs to be on rotation. There we go. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to convert this to a poly. Then I'm going to attach by list, and now I'll pick all of these. I can attach them all together at the same time. So now it's all one object. And now I can start bridging. Okay. I don't know why that bridge is giving me a problem. I'm going to go click bridge over here on my stack. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn on my animation and go about 5 frames. And then I'm going to go to the shader that's got my tracing plane on it, and I'm going to make the opacity 0. And then turn off my auto key. And now I can scrub between 0 and 5 and make it from transparent to translucent so that I can kind of ghost it back while I'm modeling. Okay, so just continue bridging here. Okay, now for this one, I need to split this so I can pick those, do a connect, and then I can bridge these pieces. I turned off, I was in the rotate mode. Now I'm getting to my selection mode so they can get that gizmo to get out of there. Okay, those are quads. Okay, I can bridge that. I'll show you different ways to do things here. I can insert a vertex there and then connect that. Oops. Oh, it's because that wasn't, didn't have it. So I have to cut this. Gotta go this way. Okay, there we go. Okay, I can turn my NURBS on. So I can kind of see it smoothed. And these are causing a problem as it's not that one, it's the center one, it's separate. Okay, so I just need to target weld that. Okay, so now with my NURBS on, that won't do that funky. Now what I'm doing here is configuring a modifier set. I'm going to go to subsurface, surfaces, and I'm going to go ahead and put my symmetry in there because I use that quite a bit. And so now I have a symmetry button up there, so I have all that access to it. A couple iterations. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I can bridge these at the same time. Same thing down here. Okay, I'm going to select these edges and pull them out by holding down the Shift key. Turn my snap off. And I'm kind of pulling out so those edges at the top and bottom there, I'm going to target weld out of there so they're about that same distance out. Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and bridge these down here. Let's bridge these. And I'm bridging these before I connect them so I don't have that problem I had before where I had to weld them. Okay, so now I can bridge these. Same thing up here. Actually, I'm going to mirror this, so I don't need to do that left side. So I just needed this centerpiece here. So I connected those because I'm going to do a mirror right down the center here. So I can cap that. Eventually this center part, I'm not worried too much about it anyway, because eventually this is going to be taken, the center part's going to be taken out to put the pedal in there. So I'm just trying to solidify it a little bit. That's going to get removed. Okay, so I'm doing the same thing here where I'm grabbing these and pulling them out to a target weld. Yeah, I'll do the same thing down here. Oops, that was edge. I need to switch it to vertex. Okay. All right, that looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to put a symmetry on. Now, see how the symmetry is going off at a funky angle? That's because I need to reset the transformation on my object. So go to my utilities, reset selected, convert it to a poly. That flipped my normals, so I'm going to select my normals and flip them back. What happened was my object, because the way I'm building with splines, was not aligned to the world. And so that's what caused that. Okay, I'm going to put on my axis constraints where I can snap these vertices so that they all align. So they're all straight. Okay, so put my symmetry in, click on my mirror and then drag it over so it's back at the center. Turn your snaps off. Okay. I'm looking at the shape up top to make sure it stays about the correct shape. Okay, I'm making a copy as a backup that I could come back to this if I do something I don't like, because it looks pretty good right now. Okay, so I collapse this in. And now I need to get rid of some of this excess geometry that's in here. So delete that. Weld that out. Okay, I'm just going to collapse these, which will make them go right to their center. collapse that. Delete the center part. Okay, so I can collapse these vertices. See what I got going on. Let's just grab that, delete that, and collapse, and collapse. And I don't need this centerpiece down here at the bottom. Let's get rid of that. Control backspace. And then I can cut across here. Like I said earlier, I'm not worried too much about this because this area is going to all get reworked once I get the pedal in there. Okay, connect those, remove that one. Weird. Oh, it's not welded. That's what the problem is. So we need to weld that. So now I should be able to grab that border. There we go. And then cap that. Okay. And that's a quad. Okay. A couple iterations. That's okay. All right. That looks pretty good. Nice symmetrical shape. All right. Thank you very much.